down.
Yeah, so there's been a bit of chatter about this Grixis control deck that a player named Aspiring Spike has been playing on Magic Online. Basically, Into the Story becomes a 4-mana draw spell if you just play Magic normally, and maybe throw some Thought Scours at your opponent. Drown in the Lock similarly becomes Counterspell / Doomblade or whatever if you just Thought Scour your opponent some.
Terminate.
Yeah, Terminate, that's the one. There's a Nexus of Fate. Oh, no, it's back again. I forgot about the proxy Nexus of Fate. I haven't seen a proxy Nexus of Fate in months.
Been a minute.
Anyway, Sam Black, what I was getting at, basically has done a very similar thing to those Grixis decks, except he's gone the way of Sultai, namely for answers. Mystic Sanctuary is a great card that allows you to effectively lock up games without actually needing to kill your opponent. Sam Black choosing to use Sanctuary as the ultimate kill condition alongside Snapcaster Mage.
So there's an early Emery there for Cain that was hit by a Fatal Push from Sam. Little tire spinning on both sides. Opt, Thought Scour for Sam. Witching Well. Some Mishra's Bauble for Cain. Here's an Explosives on 0. Turn it on Metalcraft for Mox Opal.
Yep. And that'll allow Cain to have access to 3 mana this turn if he so chooses, or more if he has more Moxen. Jeskai Cincy coming down, but not really a threat if Emery's not already on the battlefield. But Sam going to go ahead and take care of it anyway.
Yeah, Sam had pretty suspiciously shocked for a breeding pool there. Drown in the Lock is what ended up tagging the Ascendancy. Suppose this is not a life total where incremental points of a matchup where incremental points of damage really is going to matter.
Well, you'd be surprised how easily the Urza Ascendancy deck can kind of turn on a dime and become this beatdown deck with Sai and Saheeli. You know, those tokens are particularly hard to deal with if you're a control deck.
Now we see Sam really doing his thing. You saw that Mystic Sanctuary getting back, Drown in the Lock. You see Into the Story going off, that 4-mana draw 4. And Snapcaster Mage actually threatens to close over not too much time. You know, when you have this kind of counterspell backup, it should be able to cross the finish line.
Yeah, Sam here with just a complete full grip of cards. Looks like he has Torrential Gearhulk and another Into the Story in hand. And just Drown in the Lock from the Mystic Sanctuary earlier. It's going to be really hard for Cain to get out of this. Going to need to have multiple really important spells in the same turn, and to have Sam only be able to answer one of them.
Here's second Snapcaster Mage for Sam.
I think that's interesting. He could have chosen to cast Into the Story, but instead goes for a Thought Scour.
He's got a lot of cards in hand.
That's true, but he gets to turn some of those extra lands into spells. But at the same time, he also wants to hit land drop so you can eventually double, triple, maybe even quadruple spell in a weird fight. But 2 Snapcaster Mages here, going to potentially close the game out against Cain pretty quick.
Actually, this makes sense to me. So he fired off that Snapcaster Mage for Thought Scour. He was leaving up mana for Drown in the Lock in case Cain fired off Paradoxical Outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he didn't want Into the Story to tap out.
No, I mean, that's fair. I wasn't saying that there was no reason. I was just saying that I was unsure why. And that was a great reason why.
Saw a couple of attempts at spells there and a couple of counter spells. Sam Black, and actually a pretty quick win there. Just 10 minutes to be up a game against Cain Rianhard. Yeah,
Snapcaster Mage can do some beatdowns against decks that don't have very many creatures. Sam Black did have a really great draw that lined up well with the spells that Rianhard played. Rianhard missed an early land drop, you know, even though he got Jeskai Cincy down. Jeskai Cincy by itself in this deck is not very threatening. He doesn't have the Fate Stitchers to really like super combo with it. Instead, it really just is a 1-2 punch that comes after you've already resolved an Emery. And if you don't have Emery, it's just a bad looting engine, you know.
I've got to say, for a few years, maybe the entirety of Modern, there's been some belly aching about the format not having a, quote, true control deck, whatever that means.
This is it.
If you've been looking for it, yeah, this deck looks like it.
Yeah, if you are a control fan at heart, this Mystic Sultai deck from Sam Black is doing work, and Mystic Sanctuary was the card you were missing. Being able to fetch up an island that allows you to put a card draw spell, removal spell, or counter spell back on top of your deck is exactly the type of thing that this archetype needed, a real shot in the arm.
I gotta say, Drown in the Lock, also a pretty huge upgrade. Because black removal tends to be just extremely conditional, as weird as it is.
Yep.
So he gets to be Sultai and have a lot of good catch-alls. And the fact that your Terminate is also Counterspell is pretty berserk.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think Thought Scour your opponent is not something that happens a whole lot in Modern, but both Drown in the Lock and Into the Story incentivize doing exactly that. And after sideboard, you get the upside of being able to sometimes Thought Scour plus Surgical Extraction your opponent, and it's completely hidden on what you're trying to do. Sam, I think, is actually maybe keeping a one-lander this game. On the draw, maybe with an Opt or Thought Scour. Not sure.
Yeah, this deck definitely needs to hit its land drops. How land heavy are we here? 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15.
I was going to guess like 22.
24.
That's fair. I mean, the Mystic Sanctuaries are just so good, and you absolutely need to hit your 4th land drop to turn them on. It's not like you can win the game sitting on 3.
Right.
Mountaineer, not the best land for Cain Rianhard to start with. And of course, it's a snow-covered mountain, but I'm just going to call it mountain because, there's no difference at this point. Mountain's actually inferior. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Come on.
I don't love it.
You hate to love it.
No, Craig Krempels is pretty sour about snow-covered lands.
As he should be.
Wears me out saying snow-covered,
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel it.
I mean, I think the real joke is Cyrus Corman Gill. Do you know this person?
The Storm, a recent Grand Prix champion.
Yeah, Cyrus posted about how it's just correct to play Snowlands in his Storm deck because one of his opponents just thought he was like some sort of control, like 4-color snow control deck when he fetched like Swamp.
Right. I'm probably going to start playing snow-covered lands in Prowess.
Can you not? Could you just not?
I think it's important to be part of the problem.
Nah. I tried to play Neoform the other day just because I was going to give him the business.
Not that problem.
That's, ooh.
I gather that
like
you
that.
got the business.
Don't like that. All right, so it looks like Surgical here is going to be hitting, I don't know what it's hitting, actually.
See, I'm just getting a look at the leftover win conditions after this Surgical.
All right, we're going to have to rewind the tape so I can see what Surgical hit. Just kidding. I think it actually hit Emery. No, Emery died to Fatal Push. Emery's in the graveyard. Honestly, I'm lost. I was too busy making jokes. That's my fault. That's my fault, fam. Had to be something integral to the combo. Perhaps Thought Scour milled over Urza. I'm sure the SCG comment section is like, duh, why don't you pay attention? It was definitely Urza.
Yeah, chat's certainly blowing up about it. And to be fair, we should have saw it.
Yeah, that's my fault. That's my fault. I'm going to turn on chat real quick.
You get to the bottom of this.
I was just kidding.
Oh, yeah, that would be
way too
ridiculous.
Unprofessional for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Todd likes to keep it as professional as possible.
All right, Sam Black with Field of the Dead, one you don't see too much in a control deck, but is a great way for him to close out games in these very long, grindy matchups. Snapcaster Mage was hit with a Mystical Dispute, a card that we're seeing a lot more play here in Modern, thanks to the presence of these Urza decks, but it also just happens to be quite strong against Sam Black's Sultai deck.
Kind of intriguing to see Rianhard's side of things have counter spells. Seems like largely his role in the matchup is to present threats and hope he can get one to work.
Yeah, maybe with that green splash on Breeding Pool, perhaps something like Veil Summer out of the sideboard would have been pretty good. It is pretty tough on the splash, though, I'll say that. I've tried to splash Veil Summer in some decks that couldn't really handle it, and I drew it a couple times with no green mana, and it feels bad.
A lot of cantrips going off here for Black. Thought Scour, Opt. Getting close to making some zombies here. Got 6 unique lands on the battlefield.
Yeah, and once he gets the 6th land, he's just going to be able to play land basically every turn, every other turn, fetch land, generate 2 zombies, and then the rest of his time and mana can be simply used to counter Cain Rianhard's stuff, Paradoxical Outcomes and the like. Andrew Explosives on Sam's side is actually pretty sweet as well. He can play it on 0 or 1 and blow up a bunch of these artifacts from Cain Rianhard's side of things too.
And here's one of those strengths of Sam's deck. Goes and fetches up that Sanctuary, puts Cryptic Command, or rather is targeting Cryptic Command, trying to put it on top of his deck.
Yeah, and this is on upkeep. So Cain basically has to respond now, otherwise that Cryptic Command is going to be really problematic.
Responds with Paradoxical Outcome, but Sam already has Snapcaster Mage, and he will flash back the Cryptic Command to counter draw.
Yeah, but the shields are now down. So if Rianhard can untap, play another Paradox Outcome, oh no, never mind, Surgical's going to get it. All right, I'm pretty sure that's all the Urzas and the POs. I'm just going to glance through the deck while they're going really fast. Yeah, there's no Urzas in that deck. The Thought Scour got really lucky hitting the Urza early on from Sam, and he was able to strip them. So Cain Rianhard's deck now just Emery, Jeskai Ascendancy is basically his only way to win. And with Sam having multiple like removal spells in hand, and it's going to be really tough.
It was a combination of Thought Scour and Emery, right? So he's pretty likely to be able to Surgical something meaningful.
Sure.
Now Oko, though, that was one of the leftovers that Sam saw in hand. It's going to turn those explosives into an Elk, and Sam's actually down to 6 off of this attack.
I lied. Oko's actually a pretty good win condition right now.
Sam does get to make zombies off of all the lands. That's going to be a problem.
Do you think that's why he put Field of the Dead in his deck?
It's because he gets to use a Sam Black token.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that was the reason, but it's kind of nice. Abrupt Decay takes care of Oko. And Sam's not going to hang back. He has Flooded Strand uncracked to make a zombie as a surprise blocker if he needs, and he's going to attack with Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, and Sam can go ahead and blow up the explosives on 0. It does kill his own zombie, but it takes care of the Elk from the opposing side, both Moxen, and leaves Cain with very little in the way of interaction. Sam here can also just make another zombie off the fetch land, get another Mystic Sanctuary, putting another thing on top if he so chooses, but without Cryptic Command, it's not nearly as good. It's a Sunken Hollow. It's not one you see every day.
No, not terribly often, but it helps with that land diversity for that Field of the Dead package.
Now Sam here looks like he's got Deprive, which works incredibly well with Mystic Sanctuary, and a Drown in the Lock. Feel like Cain Rianhard's in the hard lock.
The hand, I believe he's had Nexus of Fate and Disdainful Stroke for basically the whole game, at least at a stroke. Not doing a great job of converting those.
Yeah, even though it can counter Cryptic Command, I generally try not to bring in Disdainful Stroke against blue-based control decks. Counter Cryptic Command or Jason Mind Sculptor or Torrential Garruk or whatever, it can win you the game when it happens, but that's not where you win and lose the game. You win and lose the game in the early turns, forcing something through, and there Sam Black was able to basically